Well, I'm here. I got my worn out Ghostbusters shirt. Got all my Ghostbusters stuff. I got way more than that, but that's the stuff I could dig out. I'm here. Let's talk about the new Ghostbusters movie. It's been many months of dealing with this movie. Many months of this crap. So, finally, Sony has released their brand new rebooted version of Ghostbusters, starring Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, Chris Hemsworth, and some other people. And this movie has been hated on for the last 4 months because the first trailer that came out early in March was terrible. It was an awful trailer. It really was bad. Like, at first I was kind of trying to get with it. I didn't think it was that good, but it was like, I thought it was below average. It wasn't terrible. But then I watched it over and over again. I'm just like, this is not Ghostbusters. And not only that, it's just not funny. As a comedy, nothing was funny. Ow, that's going to leave a mark. And the power of pain compels you. Who wrote this? I'm already going, wow. What a bad idea to reboot this. They should have made it a continuation of the series, which is brand new Ghostbusters. But no, they decided to reboot it, and then the entire trailer was unfunny and unremarkable. It even made it seem like, oh, maybe this is a continuation where we're saying like, ooh, 30 years ago, a bunch of people saved New York. Except no, that was misleading bullshit. It was just there for marketing so people go, oh, maybe blah, blah, blah. Nope, doesn't happen. Second trailer was awful. All the international trailers were awful. Every TV spot was terrible, so I had no hope for this. Especially since Sony did some real shifty shit behind the scenes, especially when they removed all of the critical comments. Critical, not sexist or racist or homophobic or any of that. Not that homophobic would mean anything, but they didn't remove any of that stuff. They left that on their comments of their YouTube trailer videos. And they removed all the critical comments, like just saying, hey, I just don't think it looks good, I don't think it looks funny, maybe you should have did this or that. Critical comments, even if they were a little bit more aggressive, like this fucking sucks or whatever, they removed those. And kept the sexist comments so they can later on, when no one likes the movie, when it comes out, they can just talk about, oh, that's why, look, all the sexist stuff. I mean, we removed all the critical comments. But of course, me and tons of other YouTubers figured that out very quickly. Real shifty shit that Sony was doing. And me, and along with tons of other YouTubers, many that did it way before me, decided that we had to say something. And yeah, and then after that, the whole James Rolfe thing where he said he didn't want to see the movie, and of course women went crazy, and of course men did too. Everybody went crazy about, like, he doesn't want to see a movie. Look at this man-child. You know, no one wants to fuck him ever, even though he has a wife and a child. And he's very successful. Screw this guy. He's just mad because no one wants to sex with him. No one wants to put this weenie in your mouth. Like, it was so childish. Stupid shit. So months and months of this has been going on, and I'm just getting more and more pissed. I'm just filled with piss at this point. I just cannot stand even hearing Ghostbusters anymore. If I hear da-na-na-na-na, I'm just like, fuck Sony. That's where it came down to. The movie's not even out, and it's already ruined Ghostbusters for me. Shitty TV spots, shitty trailers, terrible interviews with the cast where they're just like, everybody that hates us is a bunch of man-children, blah, blah, blah. And Tom Rothman and Amy Pascal and every other shithead that runs Sony Pictures talking about how this is gonna be the best thing ever. And I was just so sick and tired of it. I couldn't wait until this movie came out so it could get out of there, do its okay business, which I'm sure it's going to do fine at the box office, and get the hell out of there until maybe the sequel. And earlier this week, the reviews started to come out, and the reviews were positive, which made me happy. I really did. I was shitting on this movie because it looked like shit, and I don't care what you say. The trailers look like shit. I'm sorry, they still look like shit. Even if you like the movie, if you really do like the movie now, you should really see how bad those trailers are, because those trailers are awful. So this movie started getting decent reviews, which I was happy about, because I would never wish anything bad about a Ghostbusters movie. Maybe the people that made the Ghostbusters movie, maybe I wish they were fired, because like Amy Pascal and Tom Rothman or Rothberg, whatever his shitty name is, are too. I hate those people. I'll just say that I don't like them at all. I heard this movie was supposed to be good, so I went in expecting a halfway decent film, and I know it's about 6 minutes into this video, and now I'm going to get into the review. Sorry, I had to get that all off my chest, because it really was bothering me for the last few months. So there you go. Let's talk about this movie now. So, Ghostbusters 2016, which, by the way, I hate that I have to call it that, and not just because there's 2 movies called Ghostbusters, which is definitely a reason why I hate it, but because it could have easily been Ghostbusters 3. It could have easily been. I mean, I get it. I know Harold Ramis passed away, which is really sad. And for the last 20-something years, it's been so hard to get Bill Murray to do it, and even Sony Pictures to want to do a 3rd movie. But at this point, seeing that you're making it anyway and you're going to have a new cast, why don't you do what everybody has been asking you to do? I mean, obviously Dan Aykroyd wants to be in it, Ernie Hudson, and Bill Murray's in this movie. There's cameos. I mean, no big surprise there. They've announced this over and over again. They even had an interview or a Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, whatever, interview show, whatever. I don't watch it, but they had an interview where the old cast and the new cast was there. Of course, Harold Ramis wasn't there. Sadly, he passed away, which still saddens me to this day because I love Egon as a character and I love Harold Ramis as a person. But, and of course, a director, a writer, and a comedian, just all together. But it's just, it could have been about maybe just one of the Ghostbusters. They could have did a straight up Extreme Ghostbusters here, which Extreme Ghostbusters had Egon train new Ghostbusters. Of course, they can't do that because Egon, Harold Ramis is gone, but they could have easily did Ray, you know? Dan Aykroyd has been wanting to do Ghostbusters for the last like 20-something years. They could have easily made it about him training new Ghostbusters. So if you didn't want to bring the full team back, you could have still had it so that the first 2 movies aren't completely gone, have cameos from the rest of the crew, maybe even Ray is just cameo. Maybe you just mention like, hey, we were trained by Ray or something. Or Ray's there like, hey, I'm going to train you guys, and then it like skips 2 years later and the training is done. Or maybe a montage or something like that. They could have easily done any of those, but they decided to say, screw the first 2, never happened. Here's our female Ghostbusters. Again, I'm not against female Ghostbusters. I don't care. You can have a guinea pig as a Ghostbuster. I will watch it if it's good. I don't care. You can have a malformed pig as a Ghostbuster, and I will watch it. Which a lot of people will say that's what Melissa McCarthy is. Oh, this! I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, feminists. That was a joke. I didn't mean it. I like Melissa McCarthy. I really like Spy. Go watch my Spy review. I gave her mad credit in that movie review. I also did for The Heat. The Heat, I don't know if I reviewed it actually, but I enjoyed her. She was the best part. Way better than Sandra Bullock in that movie. Bridesmaids I didn't review, but she was good in that too. This Is 40, best part of the movie. And it has Paul Rudd in it, who I love. So that's a major credit. So I can call her whatever I called her. I don't even remember anymore. But anyway, okay. So the point is, we didn't get that, which sucks. I have to rant about it. This is a rant/review at this point. Okay, so we didn't get that. What we got instead was a reboot. But the question is, did we get a decent reboot? Did we get one that was good, great, okay, tolerable, or was it terrible? Was it god-awful? Was it unbearable? What was it? Ghostbusters 2016, even though it kind of pains me to say this, it was alright. It was alright. I should just end the review there. But of course, I have to go into detail why I thought so. I saw this movie twice. I'm just going to tell you straight up. Which, if I heard this movie was awful, I would have saw it once and I probably would have thought it was awful and then not seeing it again. But seeing that I actually didn't mind it the first time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it one more time because it's Ghostbusters. Couldn't wait for new Ghostbusters for years. Even though it might just be called Ghostbusters, it might not feel like Ghostbusters, I need to see it one more time. And don't worry, I didn't pay for either time, so... And that's really what my review is. It's alright. It has its moments. It definitely has its moments. The cast itself, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? Men aren't sexist? That's weird. But I thought the cast was perfectly fine. I thought Kristen Wiig was fine. I thought Melissa McCarthy was fine. I thought Leslie Jones actually surprisingly didn't do what the trailer made it seem like she was going to do, which is just go and scream everywhere and go, oh, hell no, I ain't finding no ghosts, no, I'm going to get Jeebus in here, like, none of that Medea shit or whatever, which I got a major Tyler Perry Medea vibe from her in the trailers, But she doesn't do that. She's definitely way more smarter. She's actually maybe my favorite character in the movie until she starts doing some of that stuff. Because there is some of that where she's like, oh, hell no. I ain't doing this. Like, and she does the thing where she dives into the crowd and she goes like, I don't know if this is the right thing or a lady thing, but I'm mad as hell. I ain't gonna take it anymore. And she pulls out her gat. No, I'm just kidding. Now I'm being offensive. Shit. But no, actually, from the 4 Ghostbusters, she might actually be my favorite when she's not doing that stuff. When she's actually just a regular human being and not being the stereotype, she's really likable. She is. There's a part in the beginning of the movie where she actually she meets the villain of the movie, and she's talking to him, and she's just like, all right, I'll see you later with your crazy ass. And I thought that was funny. There's like little things she does I thought was funny, and she does a good job with the comedy, considering this is actually, I think this is her first film. And then you have Kate McKinnon, who a lot of people are saying, oh, she's great, she's so good. And she has her moments, especially towards the end. There is one scene with her that is actually pretty badass, I will admit. But I don't really care for her. I feel like she's trying way too hard to be goofy. Like, she is the goofiest character of them all. Which, by the way, when I saw the trailer, I'm just like, oh, she's the Egon character. I mean, even the hair, the way she has the glasses, she makes all the equipment. She's the Egon of the group. But then in the movie, she's completely different. She's extremely goofy, and most of the jokes from her, I'm just gonna say this straight up, most of the jokes don't work. But I'm doing the positives right now. But most of the jokes from her, particularly, I didn't laugh at. There was a few that were kind of funny, but for the most part, not that she wasn't that great. I didn't care for her. I know a lot of people did. I didn't care for her, but I thought Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy were fine. Leslie Jones was good. I thought Chris Hemsworth, I know now people are going to say I'm sexist again, but I thought Chris Hemsworth was actually the highlight of the movie. He was so dumb and stupid, and at times it bordered on like retarded and kind of offensive at that point, because there's points where he's like banging his head on glass because he sees there's something behind the glass and he's trying to reach it, and he keeps banging his head and he's like, oh. But there's other times where it's like he's dumb, but he's not like generic movie dumb where he's not going duh and stuff. There's just things he says that are really stupid. Like there's something loud that something loud happens, like something falls and it's really loud, and he's like, that was loud, and he covers his eyes. I'm just like, that's really funny. And Chris Hemsworth is actually really good with some of that comedic stuff. And I really enjoyed him. The villain was lame as hell. Pretty much everybody else, all the other characters in the movie were pretty lame. The mayor is played by Andy Garcia, which I thought that was very surprising. I was like, what? Andy Garcia? I didn't even realize it was him in the trailer, because they did show the mayor in the trailer. And then in the movie, I'm like, is that Andy Garcia? That's weird. And he was fine. Everybody else was either meh or fine, just fine. Nothing really to talk about. The supporting cast was meh. But then, of course, you have the cameos. The cameos were, see, this is what I don't get. Okay. You know what? I actually did write down notes. So yeah, I'm just going to start reading off some of the notes I took. And this is more of an outline that I had, okay? The positives, okay? The cast was the cast has chemistry. All of them together, they have chemistry, and they're likable for the most part, with the exception of Kate McKinnon. She's a little annoying sometimes, but they're likable for the most part, okay? But then the cameos in this movie were so lame. With the exception of one. I thought one was really good, but every other one was pretty lame. Bill Murray has one, and he plays a skeptic of ghost busting, I guess. So he's the character that's like, these ghosts aren't real, why don't you show me one? And he actually has a way bigger role than I thought he would. And his character, I felt like he was just there so all the other Ghostbusters, the female Ghostbusters, can just look at a old Ghostbuster and say, we're the new Ghostbusters. There's even a moment where they say, you don't do anything. We're the ones who do all the work. And I'm just like, you pissing me off. You're making me mad. And I'm sure Bill Murray was perfectly fine with that, because I really don't think he likes Ghostbusters, which, hey, I love Bill Murray, but what? Come on, bro, really? You don't like Ghostbusters? You're the best part of Ghostbusters. And that's saying a lot, because that movie's amazing. Almost perfect, in my opinion. But, Yeah, his cameo was lame. Dan Aykroyd's was so lame, especially since it ends with him saying, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts." At first, it was kind of charming because he was talking about like, "Oh, that's a class 5 vapor." Like he was actually talking like his character would, and then at the end, he had to say that line and kind of ruined it. Sigourney Weaver has one towards the end, which is okay. That one was fine. Ernie Hudson's one was cut very short because they were kind of building it up throughout the movie, and then at the end, he shows up, and you're like, "Oh," and it cuts way short. My favorite one actually was Annie Potts's cameo, who of course played the secretary Janine in the first movie and the second one, of course. And she had a really good one because her character was a secretary. She played a receptionist this time. She was a receptionist, and I think that was she played the secretary. And she played a receptionist in this one. And when they came to her, she's talking on the phone. And she was like, "Wait, hold on. What do you want?" I'm like, just the way she said it, I was like, yeah. That's my favorite line in Ghostbusters, from her at least, is "Ghostbusters, what do you want?" I loved it. And then they had to ruin that line later. That's another thing. The cameos were pretty lame besides hers, but that's another thing. There was way too many references. Holy crap. The references were out of this world. There were so many. I was losing count on how many references there were, either in dialogue or the situations, even some of the like set pieces. Of course, some cameos from characters or ghosts from the other movies, like I said. Just so many different kind of references that really took me out of this experience. If you took all those references out and maybe left a couple in, because you can have a couple, of course. Star Wars had a couple. But Star Wars didn't have one every 2 minutes, maybe. Like, there were so many of them. And it was just so nauseating at times. Where they were just like, we don't want mass hysteria. Get it? There was that line. It was like, "Ghostbusters, what do you want?" Chris Hemsworth says that line too. There's so many references. Even things from Ghostbusters 2, which you never would think they would actually reference stuff from Ghostbusters 2. They do. There's actually a ghost that is a ghost because he was fried in an electric chair, and that was a thing from Ghostbusters 2. There's a whole set piece in a train station, just like, or a subway, just like Ghostbusters 2, even though I think that might have been, I can't remember if that was a train or that was a subway. Either way, it was very similar in a way. There's just things that they took from the first 2 movies, put it in this movie, and most of it either doesn't work or it's really taking you out of the experience. Alright, so I talked about enough of the negatives. Let's go back to positive. That's what I kind of want to do. I could talk about all the positives, but I'm going to spread it out. Positives, negatives, positives. Okay, back to positives. There's actually not that many more. There's only 2 more. Because I already said Chris Hemsworth was great. Oh no, there's 3 more actually. Okay, the special effects. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, "What? The special effects, they're not good." I thought, considering this movie, the trailers made it look like, and a lot of people have said this, but and it's kind of true, it made it look like one of those live-action Scooby-Doo movies. Like it was Scooby-Doo 3, Monsters Revenge, or whatever. What was the second one? Monsters Unleashed? That was the second one, but not the third one. They didn't make a third one. But it made it look like Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, with some of the special effects where everything's glowing, it's all blue and green, and it looks really odd. It looks like something you would see as a high-budget Nickelodeon movie. And it just didn't look appealing, didn't look like Ghostbusters. In the movie itself, it doesn't, I wouldn't say it looks like Ghostbusters, but it looks way better than it does in the trailers, in my opinion. Like, there's actually a set piece at the end of the movie where there's tons and tons of ghosts, and you see this in the trailer, where they're in the middle of Times Square, and there's just tons and tons of product placements, by the way, which is a negative. There's tons of them, especially in that one section. There's Blu-ray. Sony's in the background. You can see a Sony logo, which I'm just like, really? You're going to advertise yourself in your own fucking movie? Like, that's going to make me want to buy a Sony product because you put Sony in the background. But there's tons, like Nathan's Hot Dogs and so many product placements. There's a 7-Eleven product placement. It's just so many. And it didn't need to be there. And I get it, it's Times Square or whatever, you're going to have that. But you didn't need to have it in Times Square. You could have had it somewhere else. You got it in a park. Why does it matter? All they're doing is, at that point, they're just fighting ghosts. It's not like you need the buildings around it, but whatever. Anyway, back to the positive. The special effects, I think, do look pretty good. They don't look bad. They don't look poor. There is actually a couple times where if you're a little kid, if you're like 8 or 9, which this movie's PG-13, so if it was trying to be more for kids, it should have been PG, but it's PG-13. But if you're a kid, you might be creeped out by some of the stuff. There's actually, like I said before, there's a guy in an electric chair that was, he fried in an electric chair, and he's a ghost now. But he's kind of creepy. The way the ghosts look, and there's times where they like start glowing, and you see like their skeleton and stuff inside them. And it was actually, they look pretty decent for the most part. If this wasn't called Ghostbusters, this was called, I don't know, Ghost Problems, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It would have definitely just looked really good, and people would have been like, yeah, but because it's Ghostbusters, it just doesn't fit. But anyway, special effects are good. That's a positive, if you can believe that. It's a positive. The special effects are good. I have to say this, man, the intro was really good. The movie started off actually really, really good, because the first 10 minutes is all about, it's very much how the Ghostbusters movies usually start. Even the video game, which I have right here, I'm going to play that again soon, where it actually starts off with something that's not really a part of the main story, where they just show someone in somewhere being haunted by a ghost, and that kind of sets up the story for where our main heroes will become the Ghostbusters and stop that enemy before taking on the main enemy, if you know what I mean. So the first 10 minutes isn't even about the main story. It's just really to set up these Ghostbusters. And the first 10 minutes is really good. The way it builds up to the intro, where it's and someone screams, it goes ah, and then it goes Ghostbusters. I was like, yes, just like the first one. That's a good reference, where you make it very similar to the first one's intro, but you still make it different, because this one's set in like a haunted mansion. The first one was just in a regular public library, and this one really, it felt like Ghostbusters. It didn't feel like it was just copying the first one's intro. It was different enough, and it ended off the same way enough where it didn't feel just like a ripoff, or just like a reference that pulled you out of the movie. If I'm making any sense. I don't know if I am. I'm probably not. But I liked the intro. I thought the intro was really good. So the first 10 minutes is actually great in my opinion. And then it starts to dive off there. A lot of the jokes aren't funny. I'm going to get back to negatives right now. A lot of the jokes are not that funny. And that's the big problem about this movie. Ghostbusters was so funny. The original Ghostbusters was hilarious. This movie is not that funny. There is times where I laughed. Chris Hemsworth was really funny. There's a couple things Melissa McCarthy said. There's a running joke about her really wanting wonton soup. And every time she gets it, she always gets like one little wonton and a jug of soup. Sometimes she just gets water and one little shrimp or something. So she really likes soup. That's her joke. Everybody has a one gag that's specific to them. Like Kate McKinnon's character is really weird and awkward, and Leslie Jones's character is very scared of ghosts, and every time she sees one, she's like, "Oh Lord!" And what's her name? Kristen Wiig's main joke is that she really wants to fuck Chris Hemsworth, and of course Chris Hemsworth's one and only joke and personality is that he's an idiot. And that's a big problem, is that all the characters are one note. They only have the joke that they all are assigned with, and they don't really have much character. You get a little bit of that later on with Kristen Wiig's character. You learn why she wants to be she's big into the science stuff, but you don't really get too much besides that. You don't really know who Leslie Jones is. She knows a lot about New York. You don't know why. I guess it's because she worked in a subway. I don't know why she would know about like landmarks and stuff, and why. I mean, I don't know. She just knows all this stuff, which is fine. You don't really need to explain this stuff, but you don't really get to know them enough to care about them. So at the end, when there's a big dramatic moment, you're like, I don't really care. I mean, if this was the third movie in the series and something like this was about to happen, I would have been like, oh no, maybe, unless they're shitty characters, who knows. Like, if this is Transformers 3, I'm not crying over Shia LaBeouf maybe dying, but, you know, what I'm saying is, if 3 movies were good and then something like that happened, maybe, but for this movie, you don't really get attached to the characters, which is a problem, because in the original, I'm sorry, I keep comparing it to the original, but it's fucking called Ghostbusters. What else can I compare it to besides Ghostbusters? I can compare it to the real Ghostbusters. I haven't seen it in years, so I can't really. So I can compare it to Ghostbusters 2 now, I guess. I haven't seen that in a few years. Yeah. So yeah, Ghostbusters is like the best comparison I can make to Ghostbusters 2016. But anyway, The one-note characters, that's a problem. The intro is great, though. I really like the intro. Let's do one more negative, because I have way more negatives than positives. It just doesn't really do enough to make it its own thing. That's a negative I have here. Throughout the entire movie, I'm just like, this doesn't, like, there's so many references and all this stuff. It just doesn't become its own thing. It becomes a remake of Ghostbusters with new characters and a ton of references and cameos. That's really it. I can't say, like, even the story itself, even though the villain is completely different than villains we've had in Ghostbusters before, where this time it's an actual, I can't remember. Ghostbusters 2 had Vigo, but I think there was a human villain in there, but there was Vigo. Vigo was the ghost. I think that was his name. Again, I haven't seen Ghostbusters 2 in a little while. Did I mention that? I haven't seen Ghostbusters 2 in a little while. But you had Vigo, who was the ghost, the villain of the piece, if you will. But there was a guy that was helping him. I'm pretty sure. But in this movie, it's just straight up a guy. There's a guy that he doesn't like people because he was bullied. That's about all you get from this guy. That's the only reason why he's doing this, I guess. I don't know. You don't really get much of an impression that he really hates he hates humanity that much, that he wants to bring all of the ghosts from the ghost world into this world and destroy this world. Like, I don't get any sense of hate from him. Every time you see him, he has this face. I'm going to destroy the world. Like, every time he's in public, he should just look like he hates everything. Or better yet, have it be a fucking ghost villain. Why does it have to be this douchebag fucking... He look like... I don't know, he looks like Josh Gad. Like, I'm not scared of him. What the fuck? Like, why would we be scared of him? Zool? Gozer, Vince Clortho, I was scared of those motherfuckers. I don't want them coming up on me. And Gozer, that was really, really hard to do, because when you see Gozer, I was about to say Gorza, that's a angry video game nerd thing, but Gozer, like, it's really hard to make Gozer look really, really villainous, because when you see him, it's just a woman in, like, this 80s style, like, dress suit thing, like skin tight suit. It looked very 80s. When you see it now, it's just like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be scared of that, but then you do, you know. And you're scared of a fucking marshmallow man. You're scared of this. Look at it. Look how adorable he looks there. I mean, he looks less adorable. I don't know why he's pink too, but he looks really, really. I guess he's strawberry, but he looks adorable. But you're scared of him. If he showed up and he was like really big. He's bigger than a building, you'd be scared. You know, you're not scared of this guy. Even when he turns into the stupid fucking Ghostbusters logo at the end, which that happens. That was in the trailer. Again, not spoiler. It's not scary. Even though special effect looks nice and he's destroying buildings, it's just not threatening. So that's the main problem with this. It's called Ghostbusters. It doesn't feel like Ghostbusters. The villain's not threatening. The characters are likable for the most part, but they still aren't. They're very one-note. Even though they're likable because the actors are likable, the characters themselves aren't really in-depth or really well thought out. They're just people. They want to be Ghostbusters. They like science. They throw out a bunch of, you know, science terms, way more than anybody in Ghostbusters has ever had before. Like, they're throwing so much science stuff in like, out in front. Like, it's just like, okay, we get it. You're scientists. We get that. I can believe that Melissa McCarthy would be a scientist. You know, if it was Megan Fox, I wouldn't believe that. But I can believe Melissa McCarthy would be a scientist. Okay, you don't need to keep blowing my mind with all this science stuff. If I had any negatives or positives, this one's not really much of a negative to me. But a lot of people have said this. But people are saying this is kind of sexist towards men. And you know what? All the men characters in this movie are dumb, but so are female characters. Female characters are also dumb. Like, Kristen Wiig does some stupid shit in this movie. So does Melissa McCarthy. Everybody does dumb stuff in this. So the men being dumb, Chris Hemsworth in particular, I can deal with. Especially since Rowan, even though he's an unremarkable villain, he's completely forgettable. He's, I would say, probably the smartest person in the movie. Like, he's a smart character, I guess. I guess you're supposed to believe that. But his character was written to be a smart guy, you know. And there's a part where he does take over Chris Hemsworth. Again, that was in the trailer. No spoilers there. Like, when Chris Hemsworth has to go back to being smart. Well, not go back, not like he was before, but he has to pretend to be smart. You know, so you have kind of two characters that are men that are, you know, not going, duh, whatever. Even Andy Garcia as the mayor, he's like, duh. There's a part where he's like, he thinks when the magician sewed the girl in half in the box, he thinks that's real. There's so many lines that are just like, men are dumb. Look at this, the man is dumb. Oh, look at this man screaming like a girl. Funny. Fuck you. And my last positive, even though I had way more negatives than positives, this is a big positive. Because this movie's not offensive. This movie's fine. Me being a 25-year-old man, not wanting to hate it, but again, like I said, I don't want to hate a Ghostbusters thing ever, but not really wanting to like this movie because of all of the fucking shit from the last 4 months. It was fine. So I'm just happy that kids nowadays will have a Ghostbusters. I mean, sure, it's not as good as the original, and technically, if you're a good parent, you will show them the original Ghostbusters, and they would have a brand new Ghostbusters, or a Ghostbusters for their generation. If you're a good parent, if I was a parent, I would show them that every day. Every day. When they get back from school, they'll be like, "Daddy, can I play outside?" "No, you're watching Ghostbusters. Get the fuck over here before I do something heinous. I do something real heinous, like show you Ghostbusters 2. Called Child Protective Services. I'm getting crazy. I like Ghostbusters 2. But, yeah, so kids will have a Ghostbusters now, and it's not terrible. They'll like it. I know my kid cousin liked it a lot. He really enjoyed it. And immediately he wanted to come home and play Call of Duty. So, I don't know what that means, but it's not Ghostbusters, but he wanted to shoot people. Alright, well, maybe they won't have a new Ghostbusters, but they'll have a new movie to entertain them for a couple hours. So, there you go. That's my review for Ghostbusters. That's all I really have to say. Let's do not overview, but let's do a final thoughts, but not really. I'm just going to tell you what the positives and negatives are again. Okay, this is what I have. The cast has chemistry. There are special effects that look good. The intro is great. The kids will have a new Ghostbusters. Is that really all? And Chris Hemsworth was really funny. And I guess you could say another positive would be that there are funny moments. Also, the movie is not slow-paced. It's pretty well-paced, so that's another positive. But besides that, negative is too many references, lame cameos, even though there's one good one. The villain is completely forgettable. It's not all that funny, not very funny like the original. The men are dumb. It has one-note characters, even though they're still likable because of the actors. The characters themselves aren't really too in-depth. And it doesn't do enough to become its own thing. It's just a Ghostbusters movie with a lot of Ghostbusters references. So, there you go. Overall, I'm going to give this movie, if I have to do it from the 0 to 40 scale, I would give this a 25 out of 40. It's fine. It's a fine movie. I enjoyed it. I obviously enjoyed it enough to watch it again. Overall, I just think this movie could have been way better. It's not as bad as everybody was thinking, but it could have been so much better. So much better. But it ended up just being a standard remake of an old 80s movie. And it had good moments. It had meh moments. It even had a couple bad moments I didn't mention. Like, there's a couple moments towards the end, especially the third act. The third act actually ends very abruptly. Even though there's some actual good action in there. There's a scene I mentioned way earlier with Kate McKinnon that's actually really badass. But besides that, it's just a bland remake that has some good moments, I guess. So there you go. That's my review. And it's not terrible. It's not great. It's just a movie that won't offend you. If you're offended by this, I don't know. I was offended by all the shit leading up to it. But then the movie comes out and it's like, it's building up. It's going to be the worst thing. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. Star Trek comes out next week. Yeah! I can't wait. I'm going to rewatch the other two. Bye.